Hey everyone, my name is Filko, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to set up Just Ship, which is a free Svelte 5 code boilerplate where things like the database, authentication, email, and analytics are already set up for you. So let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is copy the template on GitHub. Let's call our new repository Just Ship Tutorial. Then we create the repository, and after the repository has been created, we copy the link, clone the repository, cd into the directory, and install the dependencies with pnpm install. After this, you should be able to run npm run dev and see a skeleton of the project run on localhost. Now, to complete our local dev setup, we need to do a couple of things. First, we create our local database file with the generate and migrate command. The next step is to set our .env.example file to just.env and to set the from email variable. We're going to set it to team@justship.tutorial.com. So anytime a user receives a transactional email, it will come from this email address. And finally, we're going to install MailPit, which is a service that allows us to receive these locally sent emails. I use Docker to run it on my system, but as you can see on the install page, there are multiple ways to do it. So once you have done these three things, you should be able to log in with any email, open the activation link in MailPit, and then it should show a logout button if you're successfully logged in. Now this was all you needed to do for local development, and now we're going to show you how to go to production. The first thing we're going to need is a domain name. Let's look for Just Ship Tutorial at namecheap.com, and it seems like the .com is available, which normally would be amazing, but since this is not a real product but just a demo, we're going to go for something cheap like the .top domain. Next up, we're going to create an account at Postmark. Postmark is the email service that we'll be using in production. Now you can't use a regular email like Gmail, for example, so you need either a work email or you need to attach an email box to the domain that you just bought. You can just use the free trial from Namecheap, and then once you have created the account, you don't have to keep the mailbox. You can just switch it out for a Gmail account later. So once you have successfully created your Postmark account, we are going to add the domain we just bought so that we can send emails from it. In our case, justshiptutorial.top. And we are going to prove to Postmark that we actually own this domain by adding some DNS records to our domain. In Namecheap or whatever domain registrar you are using, go to Manage Domain, Advanced DNS. In our case, we're going to remove the default DNS records that are there, and then we are going to add the DNS records that Postmark is asking us to add. Once you have updated domains, it can take a few minutes for those changes to propagate, but after that you should be able to press the verify buttons, and then you can send emails from that domain. Once we've added our domain, we are going to create a server, or you can use the default server that is already there. Let's name it Just Ship Tutorial. And then we're going to get the API token from that server and paste it in our .env file. We also want to update our from email to the domain we actually own, so the .top and not the .com. Now let's set up our production database. Go to terso.tech, create an account, create a database, and then copy the database URL and the database credential. Once we have created our new production database, you'll notice that it doesn't have any tables. So that migration script that we ran on our local database earlier, we need to run it on the production database as well. The command to migrate in production is the same as you used to migrate locally, simply add :prod behind it. Then when you refresh the database in Terso, you should see the updated tables. Now that our database is set up, it's time to get our Google Client ID and Google Client Secret, which are the credentials that allow us to sign in with Google. After you have created a project, go to API and Services and Credentials, and then create a new OAuth credential. The first thing you will need to do is configure a consent screen, and something important if you don't want to get hauled up by an account review is to not fill in an app logo, because for that you first need Google to verify your business. Then when you come to the scopes page, just add every non-sensitive scope. On the test user page, you can simply click save and continue unless you want to only allow test users to use your product. When the consent screen is set up, we can finally actually create our client credentials. So again, click create credentials, OAuth client ID, and then on the create client ID page, we have to fill out our origin and our redirect URI. For the origins, you can fill out the standard localhost port for when you run the project in dev mode, and whichever domain you are using for your project, which in this example would be justship.today. And for the redirect URI, you want to do the exact same URLs, except you add login/google/callback at the end. Once you have created your credentials, simply add them into the .env file at the Google Client ID and Google Client Secret line. Another variable that's important to fill out for Google login to work is the public origin variable. This should be your domain with the HTTPS included. Now that you have collected all these environment variables, it's time to finally put our site on the internet. First, go to vercel.com and sign up or log in with your existing account. Make sure your GitHub is connected and then create a new project. Select your repository and click import. Then before you deploy, click environment variables and copy your entire .env file. Also include the environment variables that you haven't filled out yet, like the stripe and the posthoc variable. And now, after you have clicked deployed and your website has finished building, if everything went well, you should have a live website at the Vercel subdomain. Of course, we want to deploy it at our own domain, so again we're going to need to update some DNS records to point our domain name to Vercel. In Vercel, click on Domains and then add your own domain name. Then fill out the DNS records that Vercel gives you in Namecheap or whatever domain registrar you are using. Just like with Postmark, the verification of the domain could potentially take a few minutes. But after all that, your website is finally live with your own domain, with a working production database, and with both Google and email login enabled. Now that the website is live, as the final step, let's add some analytics to it. Go to posthoc.com and create an account or sign in. Then create a new project and copy the credential from the install instructions. I'm not hiding this credential because it's not a secret. It will be embedded in the front end anyways for anybody to see. So let's add it to our .env file, and we're also going to add it to our environment variables in Vercel and redeploy the website so that it actually updates in production as well. And that's it for now. At the end of this, you should have a live working website with authentication, database, and analytics. I might make a part 2 where I show you how to set up the Stripe payments and actually build your application. If you're interested in that, leave a comment below. Thank you for watching.